Let's talk about Hitler.
That'll make sense later.
I'm immaculately conceived.
I don't know what to do.
I swear I'm not stupid.
Take it or leave it. Sometimes you just want to leave it.
If I gotta borrow my mom's underwear, I'm borrowing her underwear.
You just, yeah.
Misa likes the Jar Jar Binks.
I'm not gonna edit it out.
Oh no.
I don't know. Like, I think it was pretty great. Just staying on the
Sucks to
planet.
suck.
Why are you saying it with a question mark?
Clap, bitch.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Action.
And we're live.
I'm Jessica.
This is Why Are You Yelling?
Okay. So we've been off a week from Formula One, and that means that we have no race for you. But I have something else I want to talk about, which happened the same weekend as China. I want to talk about F1 Academy. And I know Anna's extremely excited about it because
I care so much. I guess my stance on F1 Academy and why maybe I'm not as enthused. I don't about this particular topic. Apparently, I just hate women. I don't really care about it, and I don't know why. And maybe we can kind of get to the bottom of that today to figure out why.
Okay.
And what maybe they could do to get me interested. Because with F1 Academy, for those who don't know, can you explain briefly what it is?
Yes. F1 Academy is an all-female junior racing league. It was launched by Formula One in 2023, and is basically it's to help develop and prepare young female drivers for higher levels of motorsport. That's like the bare bones gist of what it is.
So in terms of the other formula categories, because there's F2, F3, F4. In F4, there's a couple different variations of it in different areas, right? There's F4, the in Britain.
Yeah, F4 is more like a localized.
Yeah. In different areas.
It's continent, country type of a thing. So we America, we have our own F4. Britain has their own F4. India has their own F4. Things like that.
So what level of would F1 Academy be comparable to?
F4.
F4.
Okay. It's a F4 car.
Okay.
It's they call it the version 2 F4 car.
So F1 Academy is basically just another avenue specifically for female racers, but it is another avenue they can take to try to make the jump up into F3, basically.
I would say yes and no. I don't think F1 Academy is designed to skyrocket somebody into F3. I think what it's designed to do is to so one of the things that it says is it's designed to provide more track time, racing experience, and testing opportunities to female drivers. And a lot of that has to do with at the grassroots level, right? One of the biggest things that men deal with the same thing. So even if you're with Campos Racing, right? You're not, that's one of the F2 and F3 teams. That's not a full ride from them. You still have to bring your own sponsorship to the team.
And money.
Money. And so that's already a hard avenue to get with being a normal a boy. Mm-hmm. And so being a woman, it's kind of trying to show women I can't think of the exact way Susie Wolf described it because it has a very particular purpose. Because there have been a lot of mixed opinions about well, why are you segregating it? Because racing isn't segregated, so why are we doing that? And most of it is because there just aren't a lot of female formula racers, and the ones that have been, I don't think they've been up front and center. Mm-hmm. And so it's different because the goal is really to just help develop them. And then the winner, Abby Pulling last year, she has a full ride in GB4 now. So that's a Formula 4 series that's fully funded. Otherwise, they have to find everything themselves. So
basically, it's a way to give them sort of a platform, a spotlight.
Yeah.
While alongside, yes, developing their talent and getting experience driving cars on the track and functioning with a team. Mm-hmm. They're also getting exposure and they're getting media attention, which is going to help them ideally find sponsors of their own that they can then take with them to other racing series. Mm-hmm. That can help them then fund that. And then potentially the ultimate goal would be to help get a woman in Formula One.
Yeah, essentially the goal overall is that's what it's designed to do. Yeah. And so another thing they were talking, some of these girls are from, they all have a background in karting. Some have been racing into other Formula 4 series here and there. And sometimes they'll just do like spotlight races where like they have a driver who's racing in a series for a race or two where they perform well. But it's like a lot of what one of the commentators said, which I thought was interesting, is there's so many girls now at karting tracks that they see F1 Academy and they're like, damn, if I can get to that, then that's going to help me. Like, it's like this goal for them. Mm-hmm. It's like this, okay, if I can make it there, I can showcase myself, I can learn all these things. You're also operating within the team and getting that experience, because that's another downside. There's not a lot of track experience outside of just racing a kart or racing in said series. So like, they also added more track testing days as well. So, but a lot of the karting girls, you know, because they go out and look for talent. Like, they're going to the karting tracks, they're going and looking for these girls. It's not like it's being broadcasted, but it's still like a very small program, despite, you know, they are like trying their best to promote it. And so many girls now, even within the past few years, you're seeing more and more girls be like, I could actually try to explore this and do this. And it's not just like, oh, let's try to give girls opportunities boys aren't getting. It's just the fact of the matter is it's a male-dominated sport where if you don't see a lot of women, it's not that you couldn't do it, but it is discouraging.
It's harder. I mean, I think
harder.
I think that I think it just goes to show how important representation is. I mean, in any facet of your life, if you don't see someone like yourself doing something and accomplishing something, it is harder to picture yourself doing it. Not to say that it's impossible.
Yeah.
But if you have some sort of role model or some sort of something to look up to, where it shows that it is possible, it makes it to where you have more belief that you can do it too.
Yeah.
I mean, and that goes for anything. So, I mean, I think that is in and of itself very important, because like you said, all these female girls are getting, I think, more interested in motor racing. Mm-hmm. You have more girls that are getting into karting. And then, like you said, seeing, you know, F1 Academy as this sort of like goal to attain. Like, if I can get there, that is like going to help springboard me into the next step. And that's another avenue I could go and could really help. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's super important. I mean, I think that,
they're also trying to explore not even just the racing side of things. They're trying to, it's like really like showcase to women. So like me and you who are interested in motorsports, you know, we turn on F1 Academy. One of the commentators is a woman, and she knows what she's talking about. And it's like, and then, you know, Susie Wolf was talking about trying to showcase more of like, you know, the female engineers, you know, showing females
mechanics.
Showing them more. So it's like, maybe I love motorsports, but maybe I'm not a racer, but wow, look, I could do that. So it's just like trying to showcase, like, it's not just like an all girls club by any means. There's plenty of like guys involved, which I think is a good thing. I think it's good to have men involved in F1 Academy, because it's like, that's a positive thing. And it's a good environment.
Well, I think that, you know, I agree that the goal should not be to segregate it into a men's sport and a women's sport.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really matter in terms of like the ideal, you know, male physique to drive an F1 car is typically smaller. They're muscular and got thick necks, but they're typically smaller because they weigh less and can go faster when they weigh less in a car, right? So I think that, you know, women do have a little bit of that advantage, that naturally just built smaller, right?
Yeah.
So that's not to say that, you know, there's such a vast difference in the like physical, like your physical body, to where you would need to be in separate leagues. I think that, you know, or separate, like they can race each other. It's not like there's a drastic physical difference that would hinder or help one side or the other, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, there is something to say for like, you know, the fact that the sport isn't segregated, but you don't see that many women in just regular F3, 2, 1, most motor racing, women are not like super involved that I can see. Like it is, I would say it's probably like maybe 80-20.
Yeah, I mean, that's
7,
and that's
pretty generous in terms of like the amount of men versus women that are involved in it, in all aspects of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that it may not be segregated in the way that the rules in the sport are constructed, but it's very much a boys' club. And when men are around only other men, it's only natural that it may not even be a conscious thing, but men behave differently around groups of other men than they do when women are present.
Yeah.
And so it's not to say that that's good or bad. It just is what it is. I'm not putting a sort of moral judgment on it.
Yeah.
It just is what it is, right? And so that sort of environment may not necessarily be conducive to just one woman showing up and being like, hey guys, I'm going to be part of the team now. Like, it's not really like it's just different.
Yeah.
And so, again, not a moral judgment. I'll say if one way is good or bad or whatever. But I think when you have a series dedicated solely to like only female drivers, and then really emphasizing having women heavily involved, like basically inverting the percentage of involvement. So you now have 80% women to 20% men, maybe, or, you know, I think that is a good thing, because then you have more women developing the skill set and becoming more confident in that role in racing, and that skill set can transfer over. So if you're an engineer or a mechanic working in F1 Academy, and you get enough experience doing that, I would think that it would be a lot easier for you to take that talent and that confidence and the skill that you have developed there and transfer it over into a different series that's more male dominated, but still have the confidence in what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that's what it's really about. I mean, that's why I think there's been some misconstrued stuff. I saw some videos online that I was like, I think they're missing the point. This isn't supposed to replace any sort of like, it's not supposed to be F2 or F3 or even F4. It's literally a series that's just it was created to help develop young female drivers. So that way they have make more skill to actually go race in Formula 4. And so that was something that I saw like somebody criticizing it, saying like, well, why hasn't a driver who was in F1 Academy jumped right up to F3? It's not designed to necessarily do that. Yeah, you know, maybe you're going to have a girl that's just that fucking good. But, you know, Abby Pulling, who was amazing. I mean, she was like the Max Verstappen last season of F1 Academy, who just dominated the whole fucking thing. She's now has a full ride in Formula 4. And so it's just that, but then she's gonna get that experience of racing with more guys. And I'm not sure of her background before she went to F1 Academy, so she made like some of these girls were already racing some, because they do try to take the top talent that they see around the world to, you know, push them and give them more of those skills. Who they try to pick the drivers who they think if I can develop them a little bit more, they're gonna go somewhere. That's what F1 Academy is. So it's also helped to design, like, it's to push the girls at the grassroots level to their like fullest potential, so F1 Academy even sees them.
Yeah, I mean, and because in order for F1 Academy to be successful and to continue existing, you can't just be picking random girls who are nobodies or who you don't think have the potential to develop more.
Yeah.
Because then it's just going to be like, it makes a mockery of what they're trying to do.
Yes.
So it's not like you're just picking these random female drivers just for the sake of picking female drivers. That's like because again, it just makes a mockery of it, and it would then lend credit to the people who are opposed to it, saying that the only reason they're getting a chance is because they're women and not necessarily because they're good or deserve to be there.
Yeah.
So I think that it is a good thing that they do have some discernment and are only picking, like sort of the top of the top, which is as it should be. I mean, that's the way all motorsport racing, in theory, works. A lot of it is tied to sponsorship and stuff like that. But in theory, the best of the best are the ones getting promoted up and keep moving up.
And I think if you have a goal for the girls at the grassroots to have, then you're going to see more girls do. So basically, if girls can see, okay, if I actually push myself to the fullest limit that I physically am capable of doing in every aspect, on the like engine car, trying to get sponsorships, trying my best, and trying like the hardest that I physically can, because if F1 Academy sees me, that could change my life to then, you know, help me have a further career. So eventually I can one day, 10 years down the line, maybe I can be Formula 1. But it's like, it's just a stepping stone, but it's like, it's a goal though. You know, like it's like when like comedians used to want to be on some of those HBO showcases. That's what it is. It's a showcase, essentially. You're trying to get to the F1 Academy as a showcase. And so I got interested in it originally because Leah Block is a driver for Williams, and she's an F1 Academy, but her dad was Ken Block, and he was like a huge rally car driver, and he's just like iconic. He was behind Hoonigan. I don't know if you've heard of that before. Like, I remember at Formula Drift, I think like that sometimes is around there. but her dad was Ken Block, and that's how I knew who she was. And so I was like, Leah Block is doing that? Like, that's crazy, because her background is rally. And so seeing her do the single seater stuff was like, I gotta watch her, because I've got like a soft spot for her, because I just knew who she was. And so, I mean, to be 100% honest, like, I don't know how interested I would have been if I wouldn't have already known who somebody was. I mean, I did start to watch F2 and F3 last season because I was like, well, I'm paying for it, because everything is on F1 TV. So you can watch Formula or F1 Academy on F1 TV. I'm not sure if it's broadcasted anywhere else, but that's just how I watch it. And so I don't know if I would have watched it or not without like Leah Block being a part of it.
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of brings up the point of, you know, in theory, like, I love the idea of F1 Academy and what it stands for and what it's trying to do, and I'm fully supportive of that. However, a racing series is only going to be as successful as it's only going to continue being successful if it's bringing in money. Like anything else, it's ruled by how many sponsors they can pull in. And oftentimes, sponsors are wanting, you know, they're paying for marketing and advertising. They want to get their money's worth. And a lot of that comes with viewership. For these sponsors of F1 Academy and F1 Academy drivers and teams, if F1 Academy isn't pulling in the numbers viewership-wise, you have to think at some point, you know, the sponsorships will dry up. So being successful long-term as a racing series is going to be dependent upon viewership.
Yeah.
You know, that's just kind of what it is. And I just don't, again, I like the idea of it. I like what it stands for. I like what it's trying to accomplish. I tried to watch Formula One Academy, like one of the races. I think I did watch one of the races. And I was bored out of my mind. And I think that part of that is one to do with, they're just slower cars. They're not going nearly as fast. They're not as experienced of drivers, so they're not going to be able to pull off some of these maneuvers that like the Formula One drivers can.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of it where it's a little less exciting to watch. But then the other part of it is that what got me interested in F1 in the first place was Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
I watched Drive to Survive before I ever watched a Formula One race, right? And I was even following with Formula One on Instagram and following some of the drivers and teams on Instagram and keeping up with the race results and seeing the highlights and reels and stuff. Again, before I ever watched an actual race and was really following.
Well, I remember I vaguely remember the first time you even brought up Formula One, and it was because like, I had already known about it. I just like didn't really watch it at that point, but I like kept up through Travis basically because he's followed it. And so you got on your phone and you said something about Max Verstappen. And I was, at that point, we were not Max Verstappen fans. Sorry, I love Max now, but, you know, we're Lewis Hamilton stans. And so that was during a dark time. I think it must have been 2021.
Must have been.
And so I was like, what did you say? Like, me and you had never talked about it. So I was like, how the fuck do you know who Max Verstappen is? And I was like, do you watch Formula One? You're like, no, I watch Drive to Survive, and I've been following on Instagram. And I remember being like, wasn't that just an odd fucking like turn of events? Because that was the last thing I had ever got to come out of your mouth, that you knew who Max Verstappen was at that point in time.
Yes, because I had never at that point really expressed any interest in motorsport.
No, I had no clue you hadn't even watched Drive to Survive. And then you had told me, I was like, oh yeah, like I had no clue you even were aware of that. And I had no clue that like that had like people had like really locked onto that show at that point, because at that time I had just watched kind of the beginning and I wasn't as interested in it because, and it was probably because of Travis's influence a little bit, but I also just knew stuff outside of that already. So I was kind of just like, whatever.
So that goes back to the reason I even started following Formula One in the first place is because of Drive to Survive. And that is because that show, even just in season 1, from the first episode, really, they grab you in with the characters, with the drivers, right? So they start showing off the drivers, the team principals, and their personalities, and the dramatic dynamics of of you know, your teammates, but you're also competitors and all this stuff, right? And so that the reason I care about anything and I'm a fan of literally anything is because there is a human connection and I care about the people involved. And I feel like there is like some aspect of them that I'm drawn to, right?
Yeah.
And so with Formula One, it's the drivers and their personalities.
Yeah.
I feel like I know them. I'm aware.
That's fine. Everybody has that.
I'm aware that I do not know these people, but I feel a connection to them.
Yeah.
Through that series, through following on social media and through watching the videos and the interviews and all that stuff, right? When you spend a lot of time consuming media about people, like you start to feel like you're invested, right?
Yeah.
And so I had that initial connection, and then it was a long-term investment for me. Again, I did not actually watch a Formula One race until we're 2024, literally last year. I had been following Formula One since 2020, like with Drive to Survive and then keeping up with the races. So it took me several years of watching and keeping up from a distance before I was fully all in watching races every weekend.
And it's like, I don't know what would have happened if I wouldn't have got like into it and kind of was like, okay, let's watch it. And like, if I wouldn't be like, hey, do you want to watch this? I don't know.
And I don't know either.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And would have just kept keeping up with it the way I had been.
Yeah.
But so with F1 Academy, I don't have that connection to these drivers or team principals I mean, I know like two names, and it's Abby Pauling and Dorian Pon.
It's spelled Pin, but they say Pon
because she's French, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's Pon. But I just have no connection to these drivers or a reason to care about them personally on a one-to-one level. And so that's what's missing, I think, for me to really be invested and care about the results or care to watch.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But I think, believe me, they're aware because they're making their own TV show, which should be coming out this year. Apparently, last season they filmed, and it's going to be on Netflix. They haven't announced a release date yet, but it should be coming out. I think that's going to help. It's going to help, that disconnect where it's like, well, I just don't care about these people. The only difference, though, and I mean, in Formula One is kind of the same way. I mean, you're not always going to see the same faces. In Formula F1 Academy, you get 2 seasons in it. That's it. And if you win, you're out. So it's like, the same exact way that F2 and F3 is. I mean, if you are the champion in F2 or F3, like, you can't compete in that series anymore. But so F1 Academy is not the same way.
You have a 2-year time limit, and then you just got to move on.
You got to move on, no matter what. And they have an age thing, too, so you can't be older than, I think it's 26. And let's say 15 to 26.
Because they are really focused on up-and-coming young talent.
Yes. And fair enough. So there are some bare bone rules that I'll go over for those who aren't aware of them, which for those who don't know. So it is a Formula 4 car, and every single car is the exact same. So there's 18 cars on the grid. Every single car is the exact same. So it's not like technology heavy like Formula 1 cars. And they do include one wild card every entry. And a wild card is somebody who isn't a part of F1 Academy, but they are brought on to showcase their skill so you get one wild card per race, different drivers. So
there's it's like a rotating slot for a driver.
Yes.
And so how does that work with the teams then? Is there just like one team that has one wild card each round?
So High Tech is the new team. So there were 5 teams last season. Now there are 6. So High Tech came onto the scene this season, and they get every single wild card entry. So every wild card entry is going to be a person that High Tech brings on.
So how many drivers does each team get?
3.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's something that's also a little like confusing when you're watching it. So when you're, when we're so used to watching F1 where you're looking at the, what's that called?
The leaderboard.
You're used to watching the leaderboard, and you can see, there's McLaren, there's Red Bull, and they're on the same team, right?
And they're the same colors.
The F1 Academy is not like that. So you have 6 teams, and the 6 teams are Prima, Road and Motorsport, Campos, MP, Art, and High Tech. None of their like logo is a part of like the graphics. So like you see Red Bull or you see McLaren, that's what the girls like logos are on the leaderboard. So it can get a little bit confusing to figure out who's teammates, because we're so used to seeing like the team is McLaren. But the team in F1 Academy, you have a McLaren sponsored car, because every single F1 team has sponsored one of these cars. And they have the exact same livery. But that's just a sponsorship. It's not you're on McLaren.
Yeah.
So a McLaren car might be on Prima Racing. Actually, it's on the McLaren driver is on Rodin. And so that gets a little bit like confusing because you're trying to figure out like who exactly is teammates. And I think that is something they probably should try to improve upon a little bit, is being a little more, somehow letting the audience aware more in easier ways so they can digest it more easily about like who exactly is teammates, because it's not obvious when you're watching.
So you said, so like the Formula One teams, they sponsor individual drivers or like a whole like F1 Academy team?
No, they sponsor individual drivers.
Okay.
So they're sponsoring like Dorian. I'm gonna say Pon. Dorian Pon. She's sponsored by Mercedes, and so, but like she is sponsored by them.
Yeah.
And so, but there is a rule though now that, or I don't know if it's a rule, if it's an agreement that every Formula One team is supposed to be sponsoring a Formula. Oh, granted, I'm not actually. I don't know if I know the answer to that. I don't know if they would have sponsored her outside of F1 Academy, or they were just, every team is sponsoring an F1 Academy car. So that's an agreement that every single Formula One team will be sponsoring a Formula One Academy car with the same livery. That's showcasing, you know, that.
Yes. So there's a Mercedes branded,
and that's going to go to somebody. And I don't know if Mercedes gets to have a voice or not, who they want that to be, or if they just bring that. I'm not sure. So I might have to dig into that and see, because I don't know the answer to that. So there's 2 Red Bull cars, which I think is, well, there's actually 3 Red Bull cars, by the way.
Are they, so there's 3 Red Bull sponsored cars.
Yes, but one is Red Bull, one is Red Bull Ford, and one is RB.
And those are 3 different teams.
Surprisingly, the Red Bull and the Red Bull Ford car, they are all on the same team.
Okay.
But you would never, like, the problem is, like, you really wouldn't know that unless you, like, are listening to the commentators because they know, or if you just kind of go and follow them and figure things out, because it's not so much about, like, we focus really hard on, like, the constructors and Formula One, so we're very aware of the constructor standings. In F1 Academy, they're really focused on the drivers, even
because
though
they're not, because they're not building individual car. Like, each team is not developing its own car, so there's not anything really to reward with the constructors.
But I don't know. And, you know, it would be interesting for them to talk about that more or to do more research on it. But it would be nice if maybe they were a little more transparent with that, because they do have team standings. So it would be interesting to know, like, okay, well,
maybe it's,
like, it'd be interesting to know that, like, we're doing a development thing for these female drivers. It would almost be nice for them to also, because a part of working, like, being, like, especially in the Formula racing, especially if you do make it to Formula One, is the constructor standing. So learning how to work with your teammate, where it's like, that's an important thing to do, where, yeah, you're always racing them, but sometimes you might have team order. Sometimes you might have these things that you're going to have to just swallow down and hate. But I mean, that could be a good thing for them to have to learn to do. Because I mean, racing hard is racing hard, but also those politics can matter. And I'm not saying that there was some talk this race where 2 of the girls who were teammates, somebody came over the radio and they were like, remember your teammates, like, don't wreck, you know, don't do this, don't do that, you know, race, but like, be very aware of that. And they were not. It was rough for those girls. They were like, this bitch. So, yeah, I don't think it's not as a heavy emphasis on, like, constructors. There's not really a constructor. No one's constructing a car. But there are racing teams. This year, they added 1 more race to the calendar. And they already did China. They're going to be in Jeddah, Miami, Montreal, Zandvoort, Singapore, and Las Vegas. And they're going to be racing the same weekends as Formula One. So it's very similar to how F2 and F3 will follow Formula One around and then race on certain tracks, and F1 Academy is doing the exact same thing. So the format is way different than Formula One. You know, in Formula One, a standard session is we're going to have 3 practice sessions, we're going to qualify, and then we are going to race. In F1 Academy, you have 2 races, up to 2 free practice sessions that are up to 40 minutes long. You have 1 qualifying session. And how that works is they're doing a reverse grid. So essentially, when you qualify, race 1 will be reverse grid for the top 8. So if you got pole position in qualifying, you'll be starting 8th in race 1, and then, you know, so on and so forth. So you were 2nd, you're 7th, and things like that. Anybody 9th and below, they're going to start how they qualify. Race 2 will be how you actually qualify. So who set the fastest times, it'll be like that. And that's just to kind of, I think it's one, they don't have enough time or maybe resources to really do 2 qualifying sessions. And so they brought that. It used to be the lap times. It used to be like your first lap time and your second lap time, I think, used to be how they
qualify for first race.
Yeah. But now they're doing reverse grid. And I think that's just because they're trying really hard to like level the playing field some. I mean,
Formula gets more interest.
Yeah. Formula 3 and 2, I think, do that as well. Because I was like, what the hell's a reverse grid? And that was last year. And so I think it was one of Formula 2 or Formula 3, maybe both do that.
It's funny whenever someone brings up doing like a reverse grid for like sprint races for like F1, and all the F1 drivers are like, no, that's stupid.
At that point, I'm like, no, because it's all about Formula 1. No, I don't want to do reverse grid.
But for the lower Formula categories, they're like, okay.
They're like, sure, that's fine.
That'll be more fun. I mean, I think it is fun for us to watch. If you qualify first, if you have to then start in 8th and battle your way up to the front.
Yeah.
I mean, it creates falsely creates drama in racing in a way. It's like I don't know.
I will say, so I watched the Formula, I keep saying Formula 1, I'm like F1 Academy. It's specifically called F1 Academy, not Formula 1 Academy. I just keep getting tongue-tied over it. So they raced in China, and it was very interesting. A lot of the girls are gone. So there are a few people.
They've been racing this is their 2 seasons, right? Because it started in 2023.
Yeah, so this is the 3rd season.
Yeah, so whatever girls or drivers that they had, if they had for 2 years, they're out.
They're out now.
So it's new people.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's some that are like, their rookie season was last season, but there are a lot of new girls. But one of the girls that I am so excited to watch besides Leah Block, because I'm like, the way that she drives, I'm like, So I feel like the 2 favorites going into this are Dorian and Maya. So that's the Mercedes driver and the Ferrari driver. They were racing last season. I feel like they're the 2 favorites going into this season when people were like, oh, who do you think's going to get the championship when their names kept coming up? That's not mine. My favorite, who I think y'all need to watch out for, her name is Chloe Chambers. She races for Red Bull Ford. And that girl was on the podium twice, even with the reverse grid. She's out to that. I'm like, nah, she is straight up like, if you give her a gap, she's taking the gap.
I remember her name from last year.
Yes. And so she's American.
Mm-hmm. That's probably why I remember, because they mentioned it. I'm like, oh, she's an American driver.
And so, because we have 2, we have Leah Block and Chloe Chambers. And so, but Chloe Chambers, I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, she was just like, no. She's
bloodthirsty, shark in the water, going after it.
No, that was just her. And then just seeing how she drove compared to other people, I'm like, she's aggressive. She is aggressive, but not like in a way that I feel is like reckless. Mm-hmm. But it's like, if it's there, she's going to do it. And so she's my favorite. So this is our first episode covering F1 Academy, because the goal is to cover every single time they race. That's my favorite. So we'll see how it goes at the end of the year about who actually gets it. So like I said, I started watching for Leah Block, and I got really sad because she got wrecked, is what happened, by another driver who was, she's new, and she was warming up her tires, and you know how they'll need to warm up their tires. And Leah was going around her. She was on a flying lap during free practice. And so Leah's going like this. And the girl, just knocks into her, destroys her car completely. Leah doesn't get to qualify. So homegirl just has to start in the back no matter what for both races. So she did really well for even she had a lot of good overtakes. But that was very sad. And I will say, with F1 Academy, like you had said, you weren't dealing with a lot of inexperienced drivers. So it did feel like there were about 100 safety flags, or safety cars, I'm sorry. And I will say, that's actually a huge frustration I even have with Formula 3 and Formula 2, because I watch Formula 1. And it's just like, yeah, you get safety cars, but it's not all to the point that sometimes these are. So there are times where you're like, God damn,
can I keep it on track and not hard?
So I do get that, because it was a lot. It was a lot. But I was like, I'm sticking this out because whatever.
And I don't know that you can fully blame the driver on that happening when like part of your race engineers and your team, part of what they are supposed to be communicating to you during free practice and even during qualifying is who's behind you, who's on a flying lap, if you need to get out of the way, like take avoiding action, because your mirrors in those cars are like this big.
Little baby mirrors.
They're little baby mirrors. They're like smaller than your hand, sticking out on either side. You have limited visibility. If you include like the helmet you got on and the halo and like all the sides of the car, like you have limited visibility. You don't have a rear view mirror. You don't know who's coming up behind you or what their intention is. They don't have blinkers on. So part of your engineer team, part of what your engineer's job is to do is to inform you of that kind of stuff. And if they don't tell you she's coming up behind you on a flying line, make sure you keep to the left or the right or wherever you're supposed to be. That's not always the driver's fault if they are like warming up their tires and then weave into the other driver.
Like the stewards were like, "That's your fault," and they gave her a 3-place grid penalty for each race because they were like, "Girl,
it's dangerous."
Yeah, I mean, it just ruined Leah's whole weekend, and so.
Well, I mean, that's the same as one of the races I want to say for F1 Academy that I watched last year was where Dorian Pont won one of the races, but she didn't know what lap she was on, I think. And so I think she was asking her team if she had won, and I guess she didn't see the checkered flag that was being waved, and where they were positioned at was behind like some sort of like banner thingy or something. So it may have been more difficult to see. So she didn't know what lap she was on. She didn't see the checkered flag apparently. And then her engineers were so busy celebrating that she had won that they didn't tell her like to start on her cool down lap, that she needed to slow down. So she did a full another lap at race pace going around the track. And then she lost her win because of it. She got penalized because of it, because that's dangerous and you can't do that. Like as soon as you cross the finish line and you get that checkered flag, you have to sort of slow it down.
And I think I do remember that.
Yes, it was nuts because people were like, who do you blame, the driver or the engineer?
I think, but the thing is, I think it's one of those things that I think if this was at a Formula One level, somebody's fucking fired.
Oh yeah.
Right? But because this is a league, a league designed to develop, it's kind of like, let's develop these engineers, let's develop these teams, let's develop these drivers. Like, they were at fault. Like, way to fucking go, because you should have seen the checkered flag. You should have known that, and you all should have had enough sense to make sure that she was good.
And like, that's one of those mistakes where you will never make it again.
You will not make it again, ever.
But it's a case of like, you can blame both parties, but like people have good arguments for both sides where it's like, I don't know about the lower Formula Series cars, but on the F1 cars, on their dash, it tells them what lap that they're on.
I don't know that it's such limited technology. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and
I'd have to go back and look. I'm not sure.
But then, so yeah, if you don't have that on your dash, it is harder to know what lap you're on. Your team should be communicating that to you. However, it is also the responsibility of the driver, and most drivers will say this, that they're trained from karting, that observing the flags is the most important. No matter what your engineer tells you over the helmet set, you obey the flags that you visibly can see on the track.
100%.
Because that overrides anything else.
Yes. And that's just because, your engineer might have information that's 30 seconds too late, or when are they getting that information, and then you're on the track getting it in real time.
Exactly. And so they say, one of the first things you are taught and is drilled into you is you are always aware of where the flags are positioned. Like the marshals are positioned to wave flags.
Yeah.
And then you're always observing them. Like you're always on the lookout for them. So they're like, there's no excuse for a driver not observing a flag being waved and knowing that's where they're positioned at. Like there's no excuse for that.
Yeah.
And I would agree that there's no reason and people can say, oh, well, it was kind of hard to see with the way something was positioned sort of in the way of it, and it wasn't super clear. And like, I think they even pulled up like the onboard camera footage, and they're like, you could go either way on it, but I'm just like, nah.
It's just one of those things that, like you said, they won't make that mistake again.
Oh no.
But so with this race, it was just, there were a lot of safety cars. I think there was mostly the first one, but it was cool because we had both Red Bull drivers. We had Alicia Palmowski. She raced Formula 4 last season in what she called a version 1 car. So she has had to adjust some to this car. It's not the exact same. It's called like the version 2 car, basically. And so, but it was her first win ever. with, and right behind her was Chloe Chambers. Chloe was on that ass. Chloe, I love, because that's what's interesting is I'm like, I think too, you can get really interested in something by having some sort of emotional connection to it. I had an emotional connection to Leah Block. I love supporting her. I have a very huge soft spot for her, but like watching the race, I'm like, Chloe Chambers is out for blood, and seeing how she is with that car, I'm like, girl, love it. I love it. For the race 1 results for F1 Academy, we had Palmowski, Chambers, and Woog. Maya Woog, I don't know. I'm trying my best to say her name. I'm really sorry. She's Ferrari. So we had both Red Bulls and a Ferrari. And then for race 2, we had Dorian Pan, Maya Woog, and Chloe Chambers. So I'm like, Chambers is just, she's keeping up there with both of them, with like the 2 favorites. And so I am like excited. That made me excited to see what will happen, because I love to see somebody who, one, yeah, she was there last season, and I think she kind of had like, you know, she's going to fight. And I remember hearing her name a lot last season too. But I do love seeing someone who's like, oh, you think you had your favorites? Let me
she's underestimated.
Yeah, let me just come up on the scene and show you what I've got. So I'm excited for that. And I think racing like that makes it more exciting too. So it's like, just seeing how she drove the car made me like excited to want to watch her, because it's like, it's kind of the same thing with Max. You love, like, sometimes just watching Max battle everybody, you're like, this is gonna be fun.
Until he overtakes your driver, it's great.
Yeah.
It's fun. All good fun. It's all good fun.
But you had something that we were going to talk about that was interesting, of people comparing the intros to F1 and F1 Academy.
Yeah. So I saw basically 2 different perspectives online regarding this, and I have my own thoughts about it. So for those who don't know, F1, at the start of each race, they have what's called the driver intro. So it's basically like in any show that you watch, it's the title credit sequence where it shows your stars and their names and who they're racing for. Same thing for Formula One. You know, you get your posed driver looking into the camera, and their name flashes across the screen. There's dramatic music playing, and we get all 20 drivers, and then it's like, it ends on like a race noise, right?
Yeah.
And it plays the theme song. Well, they do the same thing with the other Formula series. So they do for F3, F2, and F1 Academy also has their own driver intro sort of sequence. And people were comparing, because they make a new one each year for each of the series, because there's obviously different drivers on different teams, yada, yada, yada. So basically the F1 intro series, so for Formula One, the all-male drivers, they're all looking into the camera, very straight-faced, very serious, trying to be a little maybe intimidating. I don't think any of them smile at all.
There's a few, Carlos Sainz, he's doing like a hand hair, and then George is doing his like T-pose, but like for the most part, he said everybody else is basically just looking at the camera.
And it's straight face. And even with Carlos doing his hair swoop and George doing his T-pose, they're still pretty straight face.
Yeah, they're not like
looking serious.
Yeah.
So then you get the F1 Academy intro, where shots of all the drivers, and their names come up on screen, and they'll do one shot of the driver and she's looking serious, and then they cut to a second shot of every single female driver, and she's either smiling or laughing or giggling or making a silly face or something like that.
It's fancy.
It's a little cuter, a little warmer, a little more approachable, you might say. And there were 2 sort of thoughts about this online that I predominantly saw. One opinion was that people loved it. They loved the F1 Academy intro, and they're like, oh, it's so refreshing to see them like not just be like, they have 2 sides of them. They're being serious, but they're also being like smiley and funny, and it shows some personality outside of like, I'm a serious race car driver, right? And so like they enjoyed it, and they're like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
And that's all they viewed. It's just fun. And then you have the opposite opinion.
It's a wrong opinion.
Where some people thought that it was demeaning in a way, and that may be a strong word, but basically they were like, why are the men allowed to only be serious and straight-faced? And then the women for the F1 Academy intro, is it because they're women that they are not allowed to be only portrayed as these serious athletes, that they have to incorporate some aspect of like, look, I'm a silly girl and I can smile and like, remember, I'm a girl, like with the cutesy, like laughing, smiling, giggling, full funny faces sort of thing. And they're like, that's kind of like demeaning toward women, or they, and I want to see, let me see if I can pull up exactly what somebody said about it, because I thought it was interesting the way, and because I want to quote like specifically what they said.
I find it such an interesting, nitpicky criticism.
Okay, so someone said, so glad to see F1 Threads speaking up about the F1 Academy intro. It's giving, we're just girls. Isn't this fun? Us trying out a men's sport, rather than showcasing that they're actual competitors who have worked hard their whole lives for the opportunity, and it is doing nothing to make the world take them seriously. And then they commented further in the thread, all the smiles / laughs just seem incredibly forced to me. And my point is that the F1 intro doesn't have them serious and cuts to the drivers laughing, even though some of them are also 18, 19 years old. So why exactly does the F1 Academy do it? And then someone else comments, genuinely asking, what kind of intro should they have to be taken more seriously? Because I just see young women being themselves and showing emotion. Surely after the Australian GP and Isaac Hadjar crying, we're not implying that drivers can't be taken seriously if they show their emotions.
No, that's what I was going to say. I'm like, so you're telling me like the introduction is whether that's the implication of whether or not something's being taken seriously? Because I don't find George's T-pose, that's from a meme that's been memed the fuck out, serious. I don't find that serious. I think that's funny. I think that's personality. Like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, that completely contradicts what they said. So where's that energy at? Where's the anger for George Russell being funny? It's not there. Because who gives a shit? Because
they're men. Why is it that the women are being so nitpicked and heavily criticized? And it seems like you're trying to do it in favor of like feminism, and women should be treated the same as men. But like, women are different from men.
Yeah, I'm like, why is it that we have to erase feminist characteristics to fit whatever like masculine mold you think this sport has?
Like, women are not trying to be men in a male-dominated sport. Women are trying to be women in a male-dominated sport. And we're allowed to be exactly as we are without having to conform to some bullshit idea that you have of what it means to be a serious driver, a serious athlete. Like, you think these male athletes are, like, they make themselves look like dumbasses all the time in interviews and silly videos they do for social media and YouTube, and they're vlogging. Like, they're just being themselves because everyone can behave like a dumbass sometimes, and it's fun.
Yeah, it's just such a weird criticism, because I'm like, how many fan edits have you seen of Daniel Ricciardo being funny, Max Verstappen? You know, that's why, you know, one of the big heavily criticized things is making him out to be this villain and Drive to Survive, but then like he's actually like hysterical
and very silly.
He's very silly,
very funny.
And so it's like Lando Norris, very funny. There's most of them are very fucking funny,
very joking. Like, even in their like formal like F1 press conferences they do after qualifying or after races, they are dying laughing because they're joking with each other and trying to be serious at the same time, and they just can't do, like, it's.
Have you never seen the video of when Alonso won in his hysterical dances back in the day? Like, this is not a new thing with drivers having personality. So why is it that women, because they're doing it in their intro, is somehow a representation of how serious they're taking the sport? That's ridiculous. That doesn't make any fucking sense. You just think it's dumb, and you just hate happiness, and you're just a miserable bitch. So just don't watch it. No, people like you, we're not wanting you to watch it. So I'm gonna say this. If you don't like the intro, don't fucking watch it. It's fine. It will be fine without you.
Because a lot of people do enjoy it.
I like it the way that it is.
The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, this is fun.
It's cute.
I enjoyed it.
I like seeing that it's not like we're trying to make women be men to participate in a male-dominated sport. There's nothing wrong with it. You're just a miserable bitch. Bye. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. That's pretty much my thought. I don't even feel like it's a good debate, because I'm like, you're just a fucking cunt.
You're just wrong.
Yeah, you're just literally wrong. And what you said doesn't even make sense, because looking at the new F1 intro, like, George was being funny. That's literally a nod at the memes and the funniness of it all. So
Carlos did a hair swoop.
Yeah.
Because he has great hair and people know it, and it's a thing. It's a thing online people talk about. He's got a freaking sponsorship with he's a spokesperson for L'Oreal Paris, for God's sake. Like,
just say you hate women.
And you hate women showing that they're women.
Just say that. Just save everybody the time. Don't act like it's in the face of feminism, and just say you don't like women. And save everybody the fucking headache of trying to understand what the fuck you're even talking about.
So, you know what? You're the kind of people that make it to where Nike has to make a campaign that says, you can't win, so just win. You can't win either way. You can't win if you're only being serious, because then you're stuck up bitch who's trying to be like a man. And you can't win if you're just being silly and goofy and smiley and happy and fun, because then no one can take you seriously. So you know what? Fuck you. I'm just going to go out and race and win and do what I do.
Yeah.
Because I can't win.
The funny thing is, I'm like, last I checked, they're like in cars racing and you're on your computer typing away some bullshit. Like, shut the fuck up. Nobody gives a fuck. Like, you're a loser. Goodbye. The end.
It's like you're grasping for straws.
It's grasping at straws to hate a series because they hate women.
And it's just
that's what it is. It's when you nitpick that much at something small, it's just it's your misogyny showing.
Oh my God. And you're doing it with a facade of trying to battle misogyny. But it's internalized misogyny that's on display here, because you're doing it in the name of feminism. But all you're really doing is attacking the wrong thing. Because if really you were an actual feminist and you're trying to battle misogyny, you would really be using your voice, whatever voice you do have online, to go after the things that actually matter when it comes to women in motorsport and their ability to like actually pursue it as a career. So like you would be criticizing, or even just like speaking up more. You would be speaking more positively about the fact that we do have our first like female engineer in F1.
For us points now.
Who the first woman engineer to score points with her driver in F1. Like, you would be focusing on that kind of stuff. You would be focusing on Hannah, who is an engineer and like the head of like strategy for Red Bull. Like, what? Why wouldn't you be focusing on those important things and getting more women involved in those aspects of motorsport and applauding that? Why are you nitpicking an intro sequence that is meant to be entertaining before the start of the race? It's just something fun. Like, you think we're all not sitting there just like singing along to the F1 intro? Like, yeah, it's supposed to be fun and entertaining. It's not.
Yeah, and I think anything can be criticized, right? So I'm like, if you have an actual criticism, like for instance, let's say an F1 Academy race is going to take place in a country where women don't have rights. I would heavily criticize that.
Where women aren't even allowed to drive.
I would be like, that's fucking, and I think that did happen, and I think it was heavily criticized because that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And I don't know every single woman's rights of all the places that I named earlier. That will be the next thing that I go and figure that out.
It's like, you know what? Maybe that's something we do need to focus on as when we're reviewing F1 Academy races in our episodes. Maybe we do need to take a look at, okay, do women have the right to drive in the countries that the F1 Academy series are taking?
Yeah, like those are the types of things that should be criticized. Like, I'm fine with something being criticized as long as it's not just you being like a misogynistic bitch. So
sounds like internalized misogyny to me.
Yep, it's showing. But anyway, that's kind of our first F1 Academy episode. We will be covering them every time. So the good thing is there's not that many.
Yeah,
because we have 22 more races for F1, and so we've got a nice break in between. And so I think it'll be way more paced, and we'll be able to actually do it. Yeah, and hopefully by then I can convince Anna to watch.
Baby,
I'll be like, watch it.
I follow them on Instagram. What more do you want?
Maybe I just need to find some really sick edits. I mean, I feel like if they just release that show soon, it's going to help a lot.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, well, that's our first F1 Academy review. We will talk at you next time. Bye. Also, if you have let us know who your favorite is. Who is your favorite for this season for F1 Academy? Who are you pulling for? Who are you watching? Okay.
Bye. No, actually, bye.
Bye.